Jemele Hill is going to join us now. And Jemele, I insist that we find the funny in this conversation, the stupid, the silly, the nonsense in this conversation, because I was explaining before you came on here just the wearying stupidity of having any kind of discussion about whether Jackie Robinson was black or I don't even know what the discussion is, honestly, or what the conversation points are that allow us to jump from Jackie Robinson to DEI and then just have the same arguments that we've been having for the last 10 years publicly and privately and longer than that. So thank you for joining us. But what's the fun? What's the funny in here? What's the part that you don't find dispiriting and you just say to yourself, okay, media members are fighting in the wrong way?
I guess probably the funniest part to me was Stephen A. Smith, who I live for when he challenges people live on national television to some kind of confrontation, be it, I wouldn't necessarily say a fist fight, but like when he challenged Kevin Durant, like, you don't want to make an enemy out of me. Or this time around when it came to JD Vance, the vice president, and Donald Trump, and all of a sudden Stephen A. Smith is like, come on my show and tell me, explain yourself. And I was like, yes, Stephen A., more debate duels. Let's go full wrestling. That was the part that I found to be highly, highly entertaining. It's like, yes, forget about how we used to have celebrity boxing. Let's just have debate duel offs all the time for the soul of humanity. Let's do this. I'm in.
The funniest thing I found from this entire situation was Robert Griffin III getting dunked on. That's it. Just him getting dunked on.
Was that funny, Roy, or was that sad? Because I found that to be sad.
I could find the funny and the sad in that situation. I thought it was highly hilarious that his take was that dumb. So obviously gets dunked on that one.
Well, I was more, I guess, of all the characters, like whenever these debates ensue, right, you have the usual cast of characters that you expect to be involved in some of these debates. RG3 was not one that I had on the bingo card. That him just coming out of nowhere being like, oh, I long and pine for the days when all of sports talk was just about sports and never about politics. And it was like, what? Where did that come from? So it was more the presence and the oddity of his presence in this debate that I found to be kind of strange, if you will.
No, I totally expected that the fat black guy with the silly ass fedora would say something about it, but he did not. I was really shocked about that.
Well, see, if that would have happened, Roy, I would have been like, okay, this tracks. This is on brand, right? But like, you don't expect RG3 to, come out of somewhere with a what he considered to be in his mind. And maybe this is sort of the dispiriting part, is that in his mind, you could tell when he when he let off his opinions, that he actually thought he was giving some kind of nuanced intellectual take that was somehow missed in all these years in which we have dissected, embraced, celebrated Jackie Robinson's legacy. Here comes RG3 with something we've never thought about before, or something that is so unique to this discussion that he needed to tell the world that no, Jackie Robinson wasn't in Major League Baseball. It had nothing to do with politics, nothing at all. It had everything to do with the fact that he was just there as just a great player, and that's it, and just completely just whitewashing the entire context of why this was so meaningful in American politics and American life, period.
I'm curious, Jemele, of your perspective on this. We came up with Stephen A. Smith, and I love the wrestling characters in media and the evolution of what it is that we have done. But it wasn't always wrestling characters, and he has become rewarded through the way that he is on television, the modern Howard Cosell, and one of the most stunning stories in the history of media to go from not needed at ESPN and let go by ESPN to running ESPN. So the wrestling character of it gets rewarded, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I don't mean to make it sound as if Stephen A. is at home, sort of figuring out what should my character say today. Like, I don't want to insult him by, I'm just sort of politely making fun of the whole kind of theater of it, because Stephen A does understand the performance element of television. And because he understands that performance element, and because he does it so well and in a way that is very unique to him, and in a way no one else in the industry can actually do it, that it is able to evoke reaction. We live in an attention economy, Dan, as you know, and he's able to create a tornado of attention with everything that he says. And for a media company like ESPN, this is extremely valuable. It's why he got the big contract. His roots are in journalism, and for a long time, he was a very good and one of the best, if not the best, NBA reporter that was out there. But I think he's tapped into something that is easily monetized. So when it's not just, this reporter saying something, it's Stephen A. Smith, the weight of his name is bringing something extra to any discussion that he is in. I just find it really more fascinating, the political turn that he's making while still being at ESPN and still representing ESPN, because as you know, that is not something that is naturally embraced by this company. And so I think seeing his dramatic turn into politics is really quite stunning given the breadth of his career.
To call it a wrestling character does diminish it, because it is just knowing the value of performance on television. But when you say you find that part of it interesting, what is most interesting about it to you? Not just the ESPN part, just the slalom course that Stephen A. has to ride in increasing audience between Fox and ESPN, because he's using both platforms for his own gain.
So that's the part that I do find to be interesting, is that he is embraced in a way in conservative circles that you don't often see by people in his position. Now, some of that is just based off some of the opinions that he shared about, things that he said about the Democratic Party and being very critical of them, which naturally will get you embraced by conservative circles. But very few people can vacillate between two wildly different networks. ESPN is not a political network at all. Fox is the most conservative, or maybe they're not the most conservative, because you do have Newsmax and you also have OWN, but they're at the top of the food chain, certainly when it comes to conservative networks. It's the value pinging that is very interesting to me, to see him going back and forth between these two circles. And at least from, I think I read this some time ago, like he's doing some kind of live event with like Chris Cuomo. So I just wonder where all of this is going. And so it'll be fascinating to see the arc of his career. I think, and this is just based off things that he said publicly, I think his ultimate goal is to be the number one media mogul in all of television. And as a personality, while, maintaining, obviously working on some projects that give him ownership over things, of course. But I think his goal is just kind of media world domination. So we're seeing this unfold in real time. And it's really quite a masterclass into how, if you can drill into the performance part of this, what lay ahead for you. Because the thing with me is that while certainly I'm comfortable on TV, comfortable in formats like this, and virtually any format, at some point, I can't perform. This is what you get, and this is all there is. So I can't every day sort of create this level of enthusiasm and fight and all these other things to sort of sell the natural opinion that I have. That's just not a talent that I have. And he has that talent to such a incredible degree that I guess the downside of it is that I feel I worry that for younger journalists, that this is becoming sort of like a Steph Curry effect, in the sense that Steph Curry started, shooting these logo threes and shooting these completely ridiculous and banana shots. And now every NBA player thinks that they can do that, or young kids coming up, learning how to play basketball, they're firing off 60-footers thinking like this is how you play the game, not realizing that talent is reserved to one player who can do that. And so I guess my larger concern is that and I don't mean to make it sound like it's a bad thing, like he's negatively influencing younger journalists, but I know a lot of them are watching him and thinking, I can do that very same thing. And so right now they're drilling into persona as opposed to work. So that's sort of like the long-term 64,000 foot view that I'm a little bit more concerned about.
Jemele, I'm not sure if you saw over the weekend, it's like not a huge story just because not that many people care about it, but they had like a producer from SportsCenter that got caught kind of ripping Stephen A little bit, saying that they bring him on to SportsCenter just to like get this reaction, and even said like they just bring him on to be the angry black man. He doesn't actually care about these things. Then he goes on Fox News and he talks about Gaza. What does he know about Gaza? He was talking about LeBron 2 hours ago. What do you make of that? I mean, because it's a weird situation where this producer was taped. I don't know if this was on a date or like a social outing, and it was kind of like set up, right? And
Well,
I don't know what state this was in. Like,
is this another, though? There's been this gotcha journalism that isn't journalism, of going out on dates and all of a sudden just recording people and, embarrassing them. Like, this has been a journalistic lane recently, has it not?
It has. It's a sucker move. And wait, maybe I need to retract everything I said. This is actually my favorite story from the last couple of days. Because, okay, there's so many things with this story. Like, one, you have this producer who, as you mentioned, may or may not have been on the date. Like, I don't know how much people have listened to this, but if you haven't, I encourage you to listen to it. It literally sounds like that they're on a podcast. I mean, the sound quality is so crisp. I'm like, was my man wearing a lavalier? Like, why is this sound quality so good? And the other thing too, I mean, I agree with you, Dan. Like, this is ultimately despicable. Like, regardless, a lot of people are caught up in what this producer said and how he characterizes Stephen A. Smith and more or less how people view him at ESPN. Like, to me, that's like irrelevant. The relevant part of this is that you could be in a social setting, and if you work at ESPN, wind up being taped and then somebody else giving that to the media. But it also kind of reminds me of a rule I used to have when I was dating. And, long time ago, when I was a single woman out here in the wild of dating, I had a rule that if I was on a date with somebody or in that kind of initial interaction where it's like, okay, this guy's cute, there's some level of flirting that's going on. If they asked me about Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless, immediately that dude was canceled. Immediately. Like, no, I don't want anything to do with you, because there is nothing more unsexy and unflattering than when you're talking to, somebody who's a potential love interest and you're like, oh yeah, so what are your hobbies? What are you, trying to get to know him? And they're like, so what's Stephen A. Smith like? I'm like, do you want to be on a date with Stephen A. Smith? Because this is doing nothing for me. Like, whatever arousal point that I had in this conversation just immediately went to negative. So it kind of reminded me of that rule that I used to have when I was dating. Like, who does that?
Can we play Douche or No Douche with her, please? I'd like to transition out of. I do find all of that interesting because it really is a story unlike any other. And Jemele, you and I, there's a sort of inevitability in, if we're talking about some of the stuff that we were trying to push along at ESPN, with great gratitude for ESPN deciding, for no good reason at all, to become a journalistic company, or decide that they wanted to try and mix sports and difficult things to cover in sports and try and do it journalistically. The fascination I have with the evolution of everything Stephen A. into somebody who could have a better presidential Q rating than Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama because he's famous.
Do you believe that, Dan? Like, seriously? I don't believe it. I personally don't. Like, I really do not believe that's true.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening that I don't believe it's true, and maybe and perhaps the polling and the numbers aren't accurate, but I have read that the polling suggests that he would be like the fourth best betting favorite as a Democratic Party representative.
I do not believe this. I have to say, like, listen, I realize right now if we did a tournament of top, dumbest times in America to have lived through, I truly realize we're in a time where this could be a number one seed. I get it. But I refuse to believe that the average person out here would look at Stephen A. Smith and say, of all the candidates that are possible in the Democratic Party, that this one is the fourth most viable that they have. And I don't believe. I know that I'm probably going to regret saying this. I don't, and this is, again, no reflection of Stephen A. Smith. I don't believe America's that stupid.
What if you were asked
despite the fact
that on a
What?
date, not the question about tell me about Stephen A. Smith, but it was like, would you vote for Stephen A. Smith? Do you think he'd be a good president? Does that then automatically cancel the person on your date
That's
with?
a good
or is that kind of like a
conversation.
gray
That's
area?
a better conversation.
You know what? That's actually to my single ladies out there. That might be the one. Because we hear all these reports that one of the reasons, or you want to talk about things whether or not you believe or don't believe, but one of the things that's messing up the dating game is that like a lot of men who have expressed support for Donald Trump is turning off the ladies. Okay. And so that this is part of the reasons that social scientists and experts say that men are living in the loneliest time that they've ever experienced, because a lot of women are choosing to stay single. One of the top reasons is our political beliefs, the differences, especially among college educated women. And so maybe that is now the ultimate dating test. Would you vote for Stephen A. Smith? And whatever the answer is, ladies, you can decide if you found your man or not found your man.
Dan, fourth best odds, Stephen A. Yeah, sprinkle a little something on
Sprinkle
that.
definitely a little something on that.
Sprinkle a little something.
Tony and Zaz say that that debate that you wish for, Jemele, would be Super Bowl numbers, they say.
Between Stephen A. and Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Okay, I can believe that. I can believe that. I would believe that. I would sprinkle something on that.
Would you
say.
pay
I'd bet the
for
ponies
it?
on that
Would you
one.
pay for it? Would you pay $5 for it?
I got 5 on it.
I got
God,
$5.
I'm gonna hate myself. I'm gonna hate myself.
You know you're gonna do it. You know you're gonna do. You're gonna call the girls over and have a watch party. Come on now. Come on now.
I am disgusted with myself in this moment.
So $5.
Yes,
Okay.
I would pay $5.
Okay,
to
all
see
right.
Donald Trump and Stephen A. debate. I'm not gonna lie. All right, I would pay $5 for that. I did not want. If the Mike Tyson fight with Jake Paul had you had to pay for it. I mean, I already
That
had
was
Netflix
Netflix.
or whatever.
You paid
I would.
$9.99 a month for it, but whatever.
Right. I already paid for it. But if that were available to pay for in the traditional pay-per-view model, I would have never paid for that.
But
But
Stephen
if
A.
you
versus
put
Trump.
Stephen A. Smith versus Donald Trump, I would pay for that. I might even pay $10 for that. I'm not gonna lie.
Can I get you 20? Can I get you
20 bucks?
Yeah, can I get you 20? You invite the girls over. Everybody splits 5. You bring a couple bottles of wine. You get on the charcuterie board.
If you're gonna
what do
pay
you say?
10, you could pay 10. You could pay 15, Jamel.
You can pay 20.
Pay 15. Got to 20. You
All
can
right,
pay 15.
$19.99.
Okay,
Wow.
sold.
$19.99 is as high as I go.
Sold.
$19.99 is as high as I go.
Wow.
I'm not going past that.
How about a loser leaves town game? Would you pay
Oh,
50 for
wow.
that? Would you pay 50 for that?
Oh.
Loser leaves
See, now
town
you put
game.
stakes in it.
$49.99.
$49.99 for a
Loser leaves
loser
town
leaves
game.
town game. I mean, for the possibility of getting rid of Donald Trump,
$49.99.
I mean, I'd pay $50 if
There
there's a
it
possibility
is.
of
You're a
it.
hell of a salesman,
I
Tony.
pay.
Look at America
I know.
coming together. Everybody's coming together.
$49.99. Loser leaves town game,
Yes,
though.
as Jeremy has the appropriate reaction.
$65 and the loser has to shave their head.
Wow, okay.
All right, let's play douche or no douche here. Leaving stickers on your flat brim hat. Douche or no douche?
Leaving stickers on your flat, I'm going to say no douche. No douche.
Morning routine videos on social media.
I'm gonna say douche because that's just like way too attention seeking. Like I don't care that much about what you're doing in the morning.
Speaking of which, bathroom selfies.
Oh, that is, you know what? That's no douche because I think that's just kind of sad. Like I don't think you're a jerk for doing that. I just think you probably haven't quite evolved yet. Like those things should be out.
I think a bathroom selfie's okay. That's because you looked in the mirror and you liked what you saw, and that's such a nice thing that you could feel confident about yourself and go, you know what? I'm going to take a selfie in this mirror, and I'm going to show the world that I feel good about myself. I think a bathroom
Nobody
selfie's
wants to
good.
see the legs sticking out of the stall.
That's
behind
fair.
You. Nobody
That's-
wants to.
that's fair.
Nobody wants to see that. Right? Yeah. You got to think of the aesthetic. Okay.
Solo bathroom. Okay.
Driving a cyber truck. Douche or no douche?
You're a douche. And I live in LA, so you imagine how many that I see on a daily basis. There's also a Tesla dealership that's walking distance to me. No one's vandalized anything, by the way, in case anyone cares.
Jemele, nice seeing you. Thank you for being on with us. It's always good seeing you.
Now I gotta go and feel bad for myself the rest of the day because you guys got me to admit that I would pay to
$50.
see Donald Trump debate Stephen A. Smith.
You think that's the part that's going to be aggregated? You know good and well that's
Right, my guy.
you know good and well that ain't the part that's going to get you.
I know. Bye.